Hey there, Seahawks, it's Miss Adams, and in this video we're going to talk about properties of exponents. So the exponent shows us repeated multiplication. So in this example we have 5 to the third power, and so our base, the larger number, is 5, and the exponent is 3. And that tells us we're going to multiply 5 3 times, so 5 times 5 times 5, which gives us 125. And for your notes for this one, you're going to have a foldable. So you're going to write all your notes in the little foldable, which should be taped onto your regular packet of notes. All right. So in our first section, we're going to talk about zero exponents. Any number raised to the power of 0 equals 1. So x to the 0 power is 1. 5 to the 0 power is 1. 8 to the 0 power is 1. And then x to the 4th power is x to the 4th. So this would give us 1 times x to the 4th, which then would give us x to the 4th. And then x to the 3rd times y to the 0. So x to the 3rd would be x to the 3rd, y to the 0 would be 1, then x to the 3rd times 1 is x to the 3rd. Now let's flip over to negative exponents. Negative exponents are not simplified. So to simplify, you change the sign on the exponent and use the reciprocal, so you flip it. So if it's negative and it's in the numerator, you're going to bring it down to the denominator. If it's negative and it's in the denominator, you're going to move it up to the numerator. Okay? And if it's just a negative exponent, it's not in a fraction yet, then it's going to automatically go down to the denominator. So to get rid of that negative, you flip it either down or up, wherever it's, depending on where it is now. So x to the negative 2 power. I want to get rid of that negative exponent. So it would be 1 over x squared, x to the 2nd power. And then on the second one, I have 1 over x to the negative 3rd power. Well, I have a negative exponent in the denominator. So I'm going to get rid of that negative exponent by moving it up. And so when I move it up, it's going to just become positive x to the 3rd in the top. And since only thing on the top was already a 1, it's just going to be x to the 3rd. All right, the next one I have 5 to the negative 3rd power. Well, 5 to the negative 3rd, I want to get rid of that negative exponent. So it's going to be 1 over 5 to the 3rd. And then 5 to the 3rd power is 5 times 5 times 5, which is 125. So it's 1 over 125. Then the next one I have negative 5 to the negative 3rd power. So the negative is out front. It's not wrapped in parentheses. It's not saying I'm not going to do negative 5 3 times. Okay, I'm just going to have it. My answer is going to be negative. So I'm going to have negative 1 over 5 to the 3rd. 5 to the 3rd is going to become 125, so it's going to be negative 1 over 125. And your negative can be in front of the fraction, like in the middle, or you can put it up with the numerator. So I usually put it up with the numerator so it doesn't get connected with your fraction bar and then get forgotten about. All right, and then this one I have 2x to the negative 2, y to the 3rd, over 4z to the negative 4th. So 2 and 4 I can simplify. So 2 over 4, 2 goes into 2, 2 also goes into 4. So I'm going to reduce those fractions. So that gives me 1 over 2. And then I have x to the negative 2 power. So I'm going to move that down to the denominator. Y to the 3rd is going to stay. Z to the negative 4, that has a negative exponent. It's in the denominator, so I'm going to move it up to the numerator to get rid of those negatives. Okay, so I'm going to be left with 1 on the top. I don't need to put the 1. Y to the 3rd power. And then 2 in the denominator. X is going to get moved down, so it's going to be x squared. And then the z to the negative 4 power is going to get moved up. So it's going to be with the y. So it's going to be y to the 3rd, z to the 4th, over 2x squared. All right, parentheses determine what the exponent applies to. So for example, you have to be very careful to make sure you're looking at the parentheses when they're there. So in 3 to the 4th power, the exponent is 4, and the base is 3. So I would do 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, and that would give me 81. In negative 3 to the 4th power, the exponent is 4, and the base is negative 3. So that negative is included, and it's wrapped in parentheses. So I'm going to do negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. And that still would give me 81. But if I put it to the 5th power, then it go back to negative. So it's going to be negative, positive, depending on how many times you multiply it. And then in negative 3 to the 4th power, the exponent is 4. The base is 3. So my answer is going to be negative. I'm just going to keep the negative there, and I'm going to do 3 to the 4th power. So negative 81 would be my answer. All right. When adding or subtracting expressions with exponents, you simply combine like terms. So no exponents change when adding or subtracting. So I have 9x to the 3rd plus 3x to the 3rd plus 2x to the 3rd. So they have the same exponents. So I have 9x to the 3rds, 3x to the 3rds, and 2x to the 3rds. So when I add 9, 3, and 2, I get 14x to the 3rds. And then in the next one, I have 4x to the 5th minus 2x to the 5th. Well, 4 minus 2 would give me 2x to the 5th. And the next one, I have 5x squared plus 4x plus 3 minus 3x squared plus 5. So I'm going to combine like terms so they can only be matching. So if I have x squares with x squares, x's with x's, constants, plain numbers, no variables, with constants. So I'm going to do my x squares. I have 5x squared, and then I have a minus 3x squared. So remember, you always have to look at the symbol in front of it to tell you if you're adding them together or subtracting them. So 5x squared minus 3x squared would give me 2x squared. Then I have 4x, and I don't have any other x's, so I'm just going to bring the positive 4x next. And then I have constants. I have a 3 and a 5. 3 plus 5 would give me 8. So I have 2x squared plus 4x plus 8 as my answer. All right, multiplying. To multiply the terms must have the same base. When you're multiplying, the base stays the same, and you add the exponents. Okay, so x to the 5th times x to the 7th would be x to whatever 5 plus 7 equals, which is 12. So x to the 12th. And then in the next one, I have 4x to the 3rd, y to the 2nd, times 2, x to the 2nd, y to the 4th. So with your numbers, your coefficients, the numbers in front of the variables, you're just going to multiply them just like you would. So 4 times 2 would give you 8. And then I'm going to do x to the 3rd and x to the 2nd. The x's, they got to keep them together. So 3 and 2, you're going to add them. That would give you x to the 5th. Y, you have 2 and 4. You're going to add those. That would give you 6. So your answer is 8, x to the 5th, y to the 6th. All right, then we have 4x times 3x to the 4th. So I'm going to multiply 4 and 3, and then I'm going to do x to the 1st. If there's no exponent, there's a 1 there. And then x to the 4th, when I'm multiplying, I add the exponent. So 1 plus 4 would give me 12. 4 times 3 is 12, x to the 5th. In the next one, I have 3x to the 7th times x squared, y to the 5th, times 2x to the 3rd, y. So I'm going to multiply my coefficients. 3 times 2 will give me 6. Do all my x's. X to the 7th, x to the 2nd, x to the 3rd, they're all being multiplied. So when I'm multiplying exponents, I add just the exponent number. So x to the 7, whatever 7 plus 2 plus 3 is. So x to the 12th. And then y, and I can find my y's, that one has a 1. So y to the 5th and y to the 1st. When I multiply, I add the exponents. So 5 plus 1 would give me y to the 6th. All right, next one, I have x to the 3rd, y to the 2nd, times x to the negative 5th, y to the 3rd. So x, when I multiply, I add the exponent. So 3 plus negative 5 would give me negative 2. And y, 2 plus 3 would give me 5. So I have x to the negative 2, y to the 5th. I don't want to have negative exponents, so I'm going to take that x to the 2nd, negative 2, and put it in the denominator to get rid of that negative. So I'm going to have y to the 5th over x to the 2nd. And then the next one I have negative 2, x to the 3rd, y to the negative 2, times 3x to the negative 4, y to the 5th, z to the negative 2. So my coefficients, negative 2 times 3 give me negative 6. My x's, I have negative x to the 3rd and then negative 4. That would give me x to the negative 1. For y, I have negative 2 and 5. So that give me y to the third. And then for z, I have just z to the negative 2. I don't have anything to combine it with. Now I'm going to get rid of my negative exponents by putting any of those down into the denominator and losing the negative. So I'm going to have negative 6 y to the third over xz squared. All right, raising a power to a power. When raising a power to a power, you distribute the exponents. So the base stays the same, and you multiply the exponents. So x to the 5th raised to the 6th, you would do 5 times 6, so it would be x to the 30th. And the next one, I have 2x to the 3rd y squared, all raised to the 4th. So you would take that coefficient, the number, and you would raise it to that power. So 2 to the 4th power would be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which would give you 16. And then x to the 3rd raised to the 4th, you multiply 3 and 4, and you get x to the 12th. Y to the 2nd raised to the 4th would be 2 times 4 would give you y to the 8th. So you have 16x to the 12th, y to the 8th. All right, in this one, I have 3x to the 3rd, y squared plus z, or times z to the 4th, all raised to the 5th. So I'm going to do 3 to the 5th power, and then I'm going to do x to the 3 times 5, y to the 2 times 5, and z to the 4 times 5. And when I multiply those out, I get 243 x to the 15th, y to the 10th, z to the 20th. And then for the next one, I have 2 sets of power to power, so I'm going to do one at a time. So x to the 3rd to the 4th, I do 3 times 4 gives me 12. Y to the 2nd to the 4th, 2 times 4 gives me 8. In the next group, I'm going to do negative 2 squared. Negative 2 times negative 2 would give me positive 4. And then x to the 1st to the 2nd would be x squared. Y to the 3rd raised to the 2nd would give me y to the 6th, because 3 times 2 is 6. Now I would multiply these, so I'd have 4. And then x, when I'm multiplying, I add the exponents. So x to the 12 plus 2 would give me 14. And then y to the 8th times y to the 6th, I would add them. 8 plus 6 would give me 14. So I have 4x to the 14th, y to the 14th. The next one, we have some negative exponents. So I'm going to have 2 to the negative 4th power. So I'm going to get rid of that negative and just put 2 to the 4th power in the denominator. Then I have x to the negative 2 raised to the negative 4. Well, a negative times a negative would give me a positive. So I have x to the 8th in the top. Y to the 3rd raised to the negative 4th. 3 times 4 would give me negative 12, or negative 4 would give me negative 12. So I'm going to have y to the 12th in the denominator. And then z to the negative 4th is also going to go in the denominator to get rid of that negative as z to the 4th. All right, in this next one, I can simplify this, because 2 to the 4th power would be 16. All right, in the next one, I'm going to work from the inside out. So I'm going to do 3 squared. That's going to give me 9. Then I'm going to do x squared to the 2nd power. 2 times 2 would give me x to the 4th. I'm going to do y to the 1st raised to the 2nd would give me y to the 2nd. And then all of that stuff is still being raised to the 3rd. So now I'm going to do 9 to the 3rd power. 9 times 9 times 9 would give me 729. X to the 4th raised to the 3rd. 4 times 3 would give me x to the 12th. Y to the 2nd raised to the 3rd power would give me y. 2 times 3 would give me 6, so y to the 6th. All right, dividing. To divide, the terms must have the same base. When dividing, the base stays the same, and we just subtract the exponents. So x to the 8th over x to the 4th, do 8 minus 4, I'd get x to the 4th. And then with your coefficients, you would just divide like normal, or simplify if you can. So I have 2x to the 7th over 6x to the 5th. Well, 2 and 6 can be simplified. 2 goes into 2 one time, 2 goes into 6 3 times. So I have 1/3, and then I have x to the 7th over x to the 5th. Well, I'm just going to subtract 7 minus 5 would give me x to the 2nd power. So I have the 1 on the top, I don't need to write, and the 3 in the denominator, so I have x squared over 3. In the next one, I can simplify 12 and 3. 3 goes into 3 one time, 3 goes into 12 4 times. And then I have x to the first over x to the fifth, so I'm going to subtract. So I have 4, and then I have x to the negative 4, and then I have y, 4 over y to the second. 4 minus 2 would give me y to the second, and z to the second over z to the first. 2 minus 1 would give me 1, z to the first. Now I want to get rid of those negative exponents, so I'm going to move x to the negative 4 to the denominator so I can get rid of that. So I'm going to have 4 over x to the positive 4, and then y to the second, z to the first. All right, this one I can simplify by 6's, and then I'm going to subtract, so x to the negative 5th minus 5. So that would give me x to the negative 10, y to the negative 1. I don't have anything to subtract from that. Z to the first minus negative 3. So minus and negative is going to really become plus, and that's going to be z to the fourth. Now I'm going to deal with these negative exponents. So I have 1 in my numerator, 6 in my denominator. X to the negative 10 is just going to become x to the 10th, but in the denominator. Y to the negative 1 is going to become y in the denominator. And z to the fourth, as a positive exponent, is going to go in the numerator. All right, so now some multi-step problems, even though we've kind of done some already. Simplify the following expressions. X to the third, y to the fourth, all raised to the third, times x, y to the third, raised to the negative 2. So I'm going to do one piece at a time. So I have x to the third, raised to the third. I multiply, 3 times 3 is 9. Y to the fourth, raised to the third, power to a power, I multiply, 4 times 3 is 12. And then in the next one, I have x raised to the first, raised to the negative 2, so x to the negative 2. Y to the third raised to the negative 2, so 3 times negative 2 would give me y to the negative 6. Now when I'm multiplying, I add the exponents. So x to the 9th times x to the negative 2, well 9 plus negative 2 would give me x to the 7th. Y to the 12th times y to the negative 6, I would add the exponents. So 12 plus negative 6 would give me 6. All right, in this example, I'm going to do 3 squared, and then x squared to the second power will give me x to the fourth, and y squared. And then in the next piece, I'm going to do inside of the brackets, I have 2 squared, so that's going to give me 4, x squared, y to the 3 times 2 is 6, and that will all still be raised to the fourth. So that first part's not going to change, and I'm going to raise everything to the fourth now. 4 to the fourth power would be 256. X to the second power raised to the fourth would be x to the 8th. Y to the sixth power raised to the fourth would be y to the 24th. Now I'm multiplying, so now I'm going to add the exponents. Always go down a level. Okay, so 9 times 256 is 2,304. X to the fourth times x to the 8th would be x to the 12th. Y to the second times y to the 24th would be y to the 26th. Okay, last two. This one, I have everything in there being raised to the negative 5th power. So I'm going to take this. I have 2 to the negative 5th power, and I have y to the second power to the negative 5th, so it's going to be y to the 10th. Z to the 0th power raised to the negative 5th is just going to be 1. So anything to the 0 power is 1. Okay, and then in the denominator I have 3 to the negative 5th, y to the 15th, it's going to be positive because negative 3 times negative 5 is positive 15, and z to the negative 20th. Now I'm going to take all the negative exponents and move them to the top or move them to the bottom to change it and get rid of the negatives. So that one's going to go up, that one's going to go down. So I'm going to have 243 when I did 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 over 32 when I did 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Y to the negative 10th, and then over y to the 15th. So negative 10 minus 15 is now 25, negative 25, so it's going to be in the denominator. And then I have z to the negative 20. I'm going to move that up to the top. It's going to be z positive 20. All right, this one, I'm going to do the same thing. So 4 squared, 16, x to the third raised to the second will give me x to the 6th. y to the 4th raised to the 2nd would give me y to the 8th. Z to the negative 4th raised to the 2nd would give me z to the negative 8. In the denominator, I have 6 to the negative 3rd. I have x to the negative, or to the positive 12, y to the positive 3, and z to the negative 3. Then, because I'm dividing, I would subtract the exponents, but let's worry about the whole number. So 6 to the negative 3, I would do 6 times 6 times 6, but I'm going to bring it up because it's negative to get rid of that. So that becomes 216. I bring it up and multiply it with 16. I get 3,456. Then I have x to the 6th, x to the 12th. So 6 minus 12 would give me negative 6. So I'm going to have x to the 6th in the denominator because it was a negative exponent. And then y to the 8th over y to the 3rd. So 8 minus 3 would give me y to the 5th. And then top, z to the negative 8 minus z to the negative 3. So negative 8 minus negative would be plus 3. That's still going to give me a negative exponent. So it's going to be z to the 5th in the denominator. All right, and that's it.